Thank you, Themasius, for the playlist. We're going to be talking about the dozens reported killed in the Gaza refugee camp blast. Obviously, Israeli military says more than 300 Hamas targets were hit in Gaza in the last day. We're going to be covering all that. And also, Yemen's Houthi rebels have claimed responsibility for missiles and drones launched towards Israel. Let's talk about it. It took 1 hour, but IDF took responsibility this time. Yeah, they did. They did take responsibility. Gaza camp targeted. IDF takes responsibility. Second phase of ground ops start. Yemen fires on Israel. IDF, it was me once again doing what you said I did. I mean, yeah, I think everybody understands that, right? Like, there is ridiculous. It would be ridiculous to assume that it wasn't the IDF targeting the refugee camp. Oh wait, they did that with the other hospital, and you know. Anyway, the Saudis stopped genociding Yemen. Why are they using their resources against Israel instead of Saudi? That's actually a really good question, my friend. The answer is yes, actually. The answer is yeah, they did. A couple months back, if you recall, I covered this story, which didn't get a lot of coverage in the media. They didn't get a lot of mileage in the media. But yeah, the Saudi blockade was softened dramatically as a part of a normalization agreement that China negotiated between Iran and Saudi Arabia. I'm going to get into that in a second, though. But yeah, it is not even that's a good question to ask. But that is what happened. Yes. Wendover, how Israel's security failed. Why is that link being yeeted? I would like to see that. I would like to watch that video. I'm fine with that. I'm actually interested in genuinely this, and it was not a gotcha. Do you think starting the Piers interview with I'm a propagandist was tactful? Yes, I think so. I think that it's silly to try and hide that. I think most people understand that mainstream media is doing propaganda of a certain sort. Everyone does it. And I needed a way to diffuse Piers Morgan before he went nutty mode on me. And I think that was perfectly fine to say it. The difference is everyone has a bias and everyone engages. Everyone engages in propaganda of a sort. It can be truthful and it can be a lie. The problem is, colloquially, our understanding is that propaganda is misinformation and a lie, even though that is not the case, right? What matters is whether you are open about your biases, like about your perspective, and what matters is whether you are trying to arrive at the truth. So that's what's important. Yeah, the IDF should have admitted that they knew they were killing civilians. Yes. I know. This is important because it instructs the rest of the siege. And we will also talk about the concept paper from the Israeli ministry, which I didn't get to yesterday. The missile was intercepted in Eilat, near my place in Aqaba. After the shock was so strong, it shook the entire city. On top of that, the Jordanian F-16s flying around 24/7 for high alert security. It's pretty scary, not gonna lie. I can't imagine how people in Gaza endure this massacre. Well, they have no other options. That's how they endure it. They endure it by just kind of being there, and there's like not really much they can do, and then they die. West Bank pogroms intensify as the world turns a blind eye. So I'll be doing a cosplay at 5 p.m. Zorro. Actually, I should probably not even mention the cosplay on this tweet. Okay. Pogroms are ethnic cleansing campaigns conducted oftentimes by like a group of individuals, not necessarily directed by the state, but can be directed by the state as well. Here it is. So I want to show you guys something, but here, let's blast off real quick. Two streamers I follow are Hassan and Kai Cenat, the duality of man. Why? Kai Cenat is entertaining as hell. You watch him for entertainment, you watch me for news. It makes sense. You know, you watch HBO Max and maybe you watch CNN. It makes sense. It doesn't mean anything. It's normal. Just for a different generation. Is World War III loading? Yes and no. Okay. Let's get started on the news really quickly. I think we should talk about the Gaza refugee camp blast. What we know so far. Some black people are very not happy about Kai right now. Yeah. Most likely because of they're saying he's trivializing the experience of black men in the country that are suffering in the prison system. I assume that's what the criticism is, right? I haven't really watched the fake prison streams. It seems wild overall. I think it's really interesting because like it's really interesting to consider because like Mr. Beast did that and it was like way worse when he did it, you know what I mean? Kai Cenat is not a great entertainer. I think he is. Yeah, Mr. Beast did it a while back, and it was actually, in my opinion, that was one of the most fucked up things he's done. Stay out of middle schooler people's business. You are way too old to watch Kai Cenat. Yeah, I have no takes on the Kai Cenat situation at all. Don't ask me. I haven't watched. I don't know what the fuck's going on. I don't really care. I haven't really paid attention to any fucking drama around the planet other than what is going on in Palestine against Palestinians. So, someone suggested Gaza Fights for Freedom, 2019 documentary directed by a friend of the show, Abby Martin. Thoughts? Yeah, it's wonderful. We watched it. We literally watched it here on this broadcast. She's great. Saw the thumbnail and I have a hard opinion I need you to hear. What? What thumbnail? How your positive PR goal this year going? Not great. My regular support. By the way, Yemen didn't fire on Israel, the Houthis did, and they aren't the Yemeni government. Yeah, but it doesn't matter because like the Houthis are the Iranian-backed Yemen government, and at this moment, that doesn't really change matters all too much because as it stands, as far as I understand it, the Saudi control over Yemen is diminished dramatically. I will eat crow on this one aspect that I undermined the Houthis or Yemen in general. I made jokes about as far as the coalition forces, like the Iranian Axis as they call it. The one aspect of that I regularly made fun of was whenever Thomas Friedman or American military officials said that you know there's gonna be a six-front war with Yemen, and I always joked about it, and I was like, how the fuck are they gonna get there? And how the fuck are they going to? What are they gonna do? Travel to the Red Sea? What do you think? They're gonna fucking go through Saudi Arabia? But of course, what I did not consider, what I failed to consider, was that they do have medium-range rockets that they have thrown in Israel's direction as of today, and openly took credit for. There had been rockets that were intercepted by coalition forces on the Red Sea from Saudi coalition forces along with like American intelligence. So that was already being quietly intercepted, but a couple days prior. But these ones actually made it all the way to Israel. Like they have range. But anyway, here, this is from Elent News. This is actually pretty good and pretty descriptive on the Iran's axis of resistance, an umbrella term which refers to the range of militia groups which are located throughout the region and maintained by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. As you guys know, I'm not a big fan of Osin Andes, but Elent News is not only a Hasanabi head, but also an Osin Andy that I do trust. He actually, 3 days prior, had correctly called out that Yemen was most likely going to attack. I will say, Elent News is definitely the best in out of like the non-affiliated, non-forensic investigator guys out there. I do appreciate his analysis. So, but yeah, out of all of these forces, obviously you have the IRGC Quds force, okay, in Iran, and then you have all of their proxy forces, right? You have the Houthis in Yemen that have been waging war against the Saudi occupation and the Saudi blockade, which was a man-made famine, which was a genocide. Iran's regional proxy forces are funded, armed, trained, and at varying degrees influenced by elements of the IRGC Quds force. These proxies consist of a web of interconnected militia groups distributed throughout the Middle East, predominantly located along the so-called Iran, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon land bridge. This is true. So you obviously have, hold on, let's open up this image in a new tab so we can zoom into it. You have the Liwa Fatemiyun, the Liwa Zainabiyun, Liwa al-Bakr. These are the Syrian forces. They have been involved in the Syrian civil war in different directions. You have obviously Hezbollah in Lebanon. You have Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, as you guys know, Popular Resistance Committees, the PRC, the PFLP, Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, and also the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine. These last two being socialist, this one being secular, and then these two being Islamist fundamentalist and even more Islamist fundamentalist. Okay, so that is the Palestinian militancy here inside of Gaza. Okay, this does not feature. This obviously doesn't feature like the West Bank and West Bank militancy. That's a separate conversation. This is just like specifically what DFLP in theory are SOCDEMs. Sure. Democratic Front of Liberation Palestine is SOCDEMs. Popular Front for Liberation Palestine are socialists. It just doesn't really matter because they are, you know, relatively I wouldn't say subdued, but they are not very popular overall. Okay. So then you have the popular mobilization units that have operated inside of Iraq. These are also Iranian-backed militia forces. You have the Badr organization, Kataib Hezbollah, Asaib al-Haq, Harakat Hezbollah al-Nujaba, Kataib Sayyid al-Shahada, and Kataib al-Imam Ali. So this is where this is why people think that there could possibly be a multiple front war in Israel. This is a fear that Israel has always had anytime they've tried to do ground invasions or anytime they've tried to do sieges. The very real threat is opening up northern fronts from Syria and Lebanon. Syria by way of Golan Heights, and then also possibly having Iranian-backed IRGC troops that already are around Syria, like IRGC-backed militias that are already operating in Syria, possibly coming in through that area as well. Okay, no, PFLP are Marxist-Leninists and DFLP are Marxist-Leninist Maoists. Okay, whatever. Yes. Oh, this is also a good take as well. Thank you, Delayed Autistic Gubby. Also, yellow on the flag typically signifies Shia insurgency groups with the exception of Fatah. Fatah is secular. So if you see a yellow flag inside of Palestine in the West Bank, that is not going to be a that doesn't have anything to do with Shias. That just means it's a secular flag. But other than that, yellow typically signifies the Shia insurgency groups, and green, red and or white are Sunni. This is an important distinction, I guess, to make, because Shias and Sunni are not necessarily fond of one another. And the reason why I'm mentioning this, there's a lot of sectarian infighting in other circumstances. However, the one thing that unites, the one fucking singular thing that unites all of the Islamic forces, or even the secular forces in this region, will always be America. Western involvement in either direction. This usually either causes sectarian tensions or ethnic militias that are logistically funded and supported by the American State Department. But usually, in this circumstance at least, the coalition of Sunnis and Shias are united against America and Israel, Israel being the continuation of America. Iran's interest, obviously, in this regard is Iran's interest in Hamas and Palestinians in Gaza, unironically, is not one of like genuine emancipation because of the one ummah or anything like that. It is mostly a destabilizing force against Israel, which it sees as a continuation of America. And this is important to understand, specifically because maybe you were thinking, well, I don't understand. After October 7th, that Hezbollah, Iran-backed Hezbollah, would open up a second front in the northern part of Israel. Or maybe Iran-backed, IRGC-backed militias would open up another front in the Golan Heights by way of Syria. And this is yet to happen. Why has this not happened? You might be asking that question to yourself. And that's a question that I've been trying to figure out myself personally. And I think that there are a lot more complex involvements with America, not just like the obvious, sending fucking strike teams and aircraft carriers into the region, which is pretty obvious. Like, I mean, obviously that has had a very important effect in tempering Iranian response and Iranian retaliation. However, beyond that, I suspect, and I have not seen a lot of writing on this. This is my personal speculation. So, Hassan, speculation alert, is that I think that the Brandon administration had been working on normalizing relations with Iran, both quietly and also the public manifestation of this relationship came in the form of the $6 billion fund transfer from South Korea, which was already Iranian funds that were slated to be paid to Iran by way of Doha, and also the prisoner swap. I think that this was part of the reason why both the American government, the American State Department, the Israeli government, and the Iranian government, all three of them collectively said, holy shit, we had nothing to do. I mean, Iran had nothing to do with October 7. Iran personally said, holy shit, we had nothing to do with October 7, but, props to those, brave martyrs, but we didn't fucking do that. That was crazy. Okay? This is very important to understand. I know the Hezbollah General Secretary will speak on Friday on the situation, but what you fail to consider is that if they were coordinated, if this was a coordinated attack, then they would have already been ready to go into battle, mobilizing ground troops and actually actively pushing into Israeli territory rather than taking pot shots back and forth between Lebanon and northern Israel, and then having like 40 plus Hezbollah fighters die as a consequence of the pot shots, where and with no real involvement. Okay, it's very different when you consider the standing army of Hezbollah actually getting into action using the entirety of their arsenal, which is infinitely more robust than the missiles that they're sending into North Syria right now. I mean, not North Syria, sorry, North Israel right now. So I think that this has been a very tempered response from Iran so far. There are, I think, multiple reasons for that, but one of which that I just brought up was the potential closed door meetings that led to the very public prisoner swap that led to everybody saying, "Oh, Brandon is responsible for October 7th." And that's why October 7th happened, as though it like materialized out of fucking thin air over the course of like a week. And it wasn't a multiple year long thought out plan. We will know more about it. We will know more about it once we will develop a better understanding on the relationship and what Hezbollah will do once Hassan Nasrallah delivers his speech that he's been fucking promoting like it's a goddamn rap battle. Okay, like it is so. Yes, I have seen the cinematic trailer. Here, does anyone have the link to the cinematic trailer? Like, they keep fucking tweeting out, Iran and Hezbollah keep tweeting out, like, listen, you better watch it. You better watch it, Israel, over and over again, and not really doing anything. And if you're wondering why that is the case, that is because I think that they are not going to do anything. Here, this is literally what he posted. This is what he posted, showing that he was going to deliver a speech, a scathing speech on Friday. That was Al-Aqsa, right? I think it was like a miniature Temple Mount. Christopher Nolan ass fucking trailer is supposed to, or this Michael Bay ass fucking trailer is supposed to indicate that he's gonna drop the fucking hottest diss track you've ever heard of on Friday. But also what they're saying is important, but also what they're not saying is important. And if you look at what they're saying so far, the Iranian foreign minister, hold on, let me pull this up really quickly. The Iranian foreign minister, Abdullahian, said, hold on, second. Yeah. The Iran's foreign minister, Abdullahian, in today's meeting with Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh, said the region is in the stage of making a very important decision. The resistance groups in the region make their own decisions and don't necessarily wait for political decisions. Therefore, if Israeli war crimes continue and the war expands, no party will be able to escape its consequences. Now, this is important to understand. Okay? This is what is important to understand. That's what they said officially to outside media, by the way. Inside Iran schools and Basij, they've been telling us they literally supported this, both forces and funds, for 27. Yeah, of course they supported the... nobody thinks that Iran has not been supporting Hamas. Everybody understands that. It's very important as to why, to the foreign media, they're saying they're not. Iran also personally stated that, you know, they thought it was sick. Like, they thought October 7th was fucking fire. So a couple different considerations here. Are, and again, this is wee woo. Yeah, they're basically saying they can't control Hezbollah if they get involved, right? No, that's not what they're saying. What they're saying is, thus far, the Hezbollah involvement has been outside of their control, which makes sense. It makes sense that they're saying the Hezbollah involvement has been outside of their control, because if Hezbollah got involved, there would be a lot more rocket barrages and ground activity to pull some of the forces from northern Gaza directly to protect the northern parts of Israel. So I think that, yeah, he did it. Nasrallah signing his kick contract type cinematics. Exactly. It was pretty funny. But there was an interesting article in Le Monde on the 24th. Apparently, the operation was very secret, and even the political wing of Hamas was caught off guard, and the Washington does not think they had any outside help. Like, they had outside help in the sense that, of course, there is no inside Gaza. Like, those missiles don't materialize. Those guns don't materialize, right? Like, obviously, they get outside help consistently from Iran to maintain any kind of violent resistance. The point is that they did this outside of the scope and outside of the go-ahead of the Iranian government. Now, why is that important? It seems to me, one reason why Hezbollah has not been involved, which was something that I talked about early on and said, if Hezbollah is never involved, this is the likely reason. It's because the Lebanese economy is absolutely dog shit. And Hezbollah cannot withstand any kind of Israeli bombing campaign on its cities. They have nothing. At the end of Nasrallah's videos, this is a Quranic verse. It was a promise fulfilled, so maybe indicative. I mean, I think this is also indicative. I mean, this directly says that, this is basically pointing to the Al-Aqsa flood operation, right? Like, that was the name of the operation on October 7th. So I think that it's going to be a speech specifically in regards to how they will. That's not Al-Aqsa flood, man. No, I'm saying that the October 7th operation was called Al-Aqsa flood. This is the Dome of the Rock, but it's still it's oh my God. I hate when people get I hate when people get really fucking annoying about the semantics of this, okay? The Dome of the Rock is technically considered, as far as I understand, a part of the Al-Aqsa compound, the Al-Aqsa Mosque. I know that the semantics are important, but the Dome of the Rock is the symbol people look at when referring to Al-Aqsa. Exactly. Like, in the Muslim world, he's literally signaling to Al-Aqsa. Anyway, bro thinks Hezbollah cares about the economy. Ha ha ha. There are dogs of Iran. Yeah, I think that it's still important because that means you don't have enough support on the ground. If your economy is completely gone, if your economy is completely in the shitter, that means you can't withstand an Israeli bombing campaign. That's what that means. So even if Hezbollah personally is like, oh, I hope all the Lebanese people die, even though they are also Lebanese, okay, it still doesn't change the reality that they cannot actually withstand a bombing campaign. Anyway. So, oh my God. I'm getting lost in the weeds here. Okay, so they signaled a big speech was coming on Friday, but there hasn't been a lot of military action. beyond pot shots from Hezbollah forces in northern Israel and vice versa. Okay? Ultimately, the Lebanese economy cannot withstand any kind of bombing campaign from Israel, because Israel's bombing campaigns are historically devastating to the civilian population and the infrastructure in general. They do not give a shit. They will blow up entire fucking towns. They will blow up every building. They will blow up every residential building as a part of their modus operandi. We've talked about this quite a bit. Hezbollah has 2 million Shia Muslims to look after in Lebanon, and they run a massive social movement providing aid to them. The damage after the 2006 war was a major issue, and they had to ask for more funding from Iran, so economic impacts are important. Yes, exactly. Hezbollah handed Israel its only military loss in 2006, and they have so much experience fighting Sunni militias, including Daesh in Iraq and Syria. They will 100% lose in the long run, but it would be very fearic for the Israelis. And Ben Shapiro even said if Hezbollah got involved, that Israel should seriously consider using nuclear weapons. Yeah. That's... I like that we're referring to Ben Shapiro on Israel's like military policy, but the way that the belligerent way in which Israel wages war against civilian populations, to me at least, indicates that Ben Shapiro's not that far off with his analysis. So I don't think that they're going to fucking actually nuke Lebanon. But, you know, considering that they've dropped one Hiroshima equivalent of conventional missiles and rockets into Gaza so far, you know, anything is possible. Israel goes YOLO mode every single time. So there is no reason for them to ever listen to the Geneva suggestions. There is no reason for them to ever listen to the internationally recognized codes of conduct around waging war. They've never done that. And they also have an apartheid state. This is before we even talk about how Israel also is maintaining an apartheid state, which I need to talk about as well, because the major stress point here was the mistreatment of Palestinians and the ongoing pogroms in the West Bank. That is what is like the major point of contention, and why any kind of violent retaliation occurs from the Gazan front ever. It doesn't just materialize out of thin air. It literally fucking happens as a consequence of the Palestinians that are getting absolutely fucking destroyed in West Bank, despite the fact that they don't have anything to do with Hamas at all, other than the fact that they are Palestinian. So the entire purpose for Iran in the region is to say, hey, if you keep fucking ethnically cleansing Palestinians in Gaza, we are going to go into Israel. Like, we're going to fucking open up new fronts in this war, and you're going to have to deal with like a lot more of your civilians dying. And that is always a point of consideration, and it has been in the past as well. But one example I will give is this, okay? I feel as though in this last military operation, in the last militant operation on October 7th, which was very brutal, the Palestinian forces did not think that they were going to be as, in their minds, successful, okay, as they actually ended up being, with the human toll, with the civilian casualty, and with the amount of hostages that they were able to take. This is consistent with, of course, the Iranian messages that we've heard from them thus far, and that due to their achievement, and I'm using achievement on their, like, using achievement, not that it was like a good thing, okay, but due to what they were able to accomplish far beyond what they thought their capabilities were, that the Israeli retaliation, it was going to be devastating, and that given that they did not the other regional actors did not realize it was going to be this brutal. I don't think that they were ready for a full scale multiple front war against Israel. Okay? So, as it stands currently, Lebanese intel is saying that Israel knew and pulled troops on purpose. No, I don't believe in the 9/11 stuff. I've talked about this before. Like 9/11 was an inside job type shit. Like I talk about that all the time. I think the most reasonable is often the closest to the truth. And the most reasonable assessment is that they were absolutely and utterly incredibly arrogant about the conditions of the occupation and about a way to immediately squash any kind of violent retaliation coming from Gaza. They were unprepared because they were arrogant. They were unprepared because they had moved forces that have been engaging in, I guess, domestic suppression rather than like actual, actual real military operations into the West Bank at the behest of Itamar Ben-Gvir and his violent ambitions in completely ethnically cleansing the West Bank. The more the 500,000, 470,000 settlers get violent in the West Bank, the more you have to have additional IDF presence there in order to maintain that violence, in order to contain that violence, but also to maintain that violence. So I think that was the most important reason. I think it was arrogance more than a deliberate inaction. I think, like, for example, not listening to other intelligence agencies, foreign intelligence agencies, and their warnings, in my opinion, was not, oh yeah, this is fine, like, we want them to attack Israel so we can violently retaliate and take over and possibly even annex northern Gaza. But instead, I believe it was because they were like, what the fuck are they going to do? It was more so, I think it was more arrogance than it was deliberately refusing to take this seriously. Okay? What is this? Dude, don't send me shit like this, because send me the actual article, please. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, we've suffered heavy losses in Gaza in the last 24 hours. I doubt that they would. I don't know if he actually said that, but if he did actually say that, please send me a fucking actual link to an article and not like a fucking photo. So Carter Center calls for Gaza ceasefire, return of hostages. Oh, man. How about you sit this one out, King? You know? Just sit this one out. You know what I mean? You've done enough, sir. You've done enough. How can Yemen fight a war given their own dire humanitarian crisis? The humanitarian crisis is no longer as bad as it once was, as far as I understand it, given the Iranian-Saudi normalization agreement, and one of the conditions of said normalization agreement conducted by China being the cessation of hostile bombing campaigns and a blockade on Yemen. So apparently 2 IDF soldiers were killed, and troops overrun Jabalia Hamas post, kill commander, 50 terrorists is what they're saying. So the Jabalia Gaza, the Jabalia refugee camp bombing is being considered a successful strike, knowing full well that there were civilians there, because they're saying that they killed a commander, a military commander. So Yemen isn't declaring war on Israel. A Yemeni group, Houthis, are declaring war on Israel. Yes, but it's the Iranian side, and it's still Houthis are in control of Yemen. What you're describing is literally the conflict in general, that one side is Saudi-backed, but also ultimately under blockade. The entirety of Yemen is under blockade and being bombed by the Saudis, which has created a genocide. It's still Yemen. They're the government. Saying that it's it doesn't, saying that they're not an expression of the government is I don't know, it's a little ridiculous. Anyway, let's get started. Okay, like I said, my speculation, my speculation is this is Hassan's speculation alert, is that it doesn't seem very likely, given what they've done so far, it doesn't seem very likely that Hezbollah or Iran in general is all too interested in opening up additional fronts. And I say this at a time when, you have Yemen missile strikes in Israel. And as Elant News correctly is saying, again, the distance inhibits the level and amount of strikes that Israel can do in retaliation. That's partly why they made the decision to launch missiles and drones. So they have drones and missiles in their capabilities, some of which can obviously reach Israel. And the retaliation all the way down to fucking Yemen from Israel will be limited because of proximity. Okay? That's it. That's why I laughed at the notion of like opening up a 6-front war or whatever with Yemen, with Houthi rebels like fighting in, I don't know, I guess like the southern point of Israel or something. Because how the fuck would they get there? Would they use their navy? Or would they fly over there? Like, would they traverse through the desert over a massive amount of over a massive Saudi territory, which is a country that had a ruthless and brutal blockade that caused a genocide in Yemen until not that long ago? It's just not going to happen. But they still can lob rockets and assume that Israel can not really retaliate in the same way that it could to Lebanon because it's too far. And yes, Crit C is correct. Houthis had already attempted to launch missiles that were intercepted in the Red Sea. These ones were not. All of this to me signals that that the Iranian-backed forces are not trying to actively engage with Israel beyond pot shots.
50 people are said to have been killed and many more injured in a blast at the Jabalia Refugee.
And yes, Secretary of Antifa, you are correct. It seems to me like the Western world will continue to look the other way or outright champion the ongoing ethnic cleansing in Gaza and the pogroms in the West Bank with no end in sight, and that there will not be some kind of, I might be totally wrong, but it doesn't seem like there's going to be this violent retaliation from Iran-backed militias in the region that draw Israel's attention elsewhere. So it just kind of seems like what is happening thus far is going to continue happening until, I guess, the Israel's interest in blood is satiated.
Refugee camp in northern Gaza. Well, those figures come from the Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry, which also says the camp came under Israeli fire. We're yet to hear from the Israeli military. The BBC is still establishing the details. Pictures from the scene, as you can see, show people searching for survivors and pulling bodies from the rubble. Now, Israel earlier said its forces are striking targets in all parts of Gaza, with fierce battles being reported with Hamas. Let me show you these pictures from Israel's defense forces showing their troops carrying out ground operations. The IDF says it has encountered anti-tank missiles and machine gun fire as they advance into Gaza. A spokesman said it was hunting commanders of Hamas and attacking infrastructure. Meanwhile, this video was released by Hamas. They say that the people you can see surrounded by tanks are in a firefight with Israeli soldiers in northern Gaza over the weekend. The Palestinian Red Crescent says the area around the Al-Quds hospital in Gaza City has again been under heavy
Israel, since then, Israel's, of course, confirmed that the strike was done by them on Jabalia.
The health ministry says more than 8,500 people have been killed in the past 3 weeks. Israel says over 1,400 Israelis were killed in the Hamas attacks on October the 7th. Well, let's go straight to our diplomatic correspondent, Paul Adams, who's in Jerusalem. And Paul, what more can you tell us about the blast at the Jabalia camp?
Well, Matthew, I think you've shown some of the pictures. They are pretty shocking. That crater is huge, an absolutely enormous hole surrounded by vast quantities of rubble, and then homes and buildings around there that have been obviously severely damaged, either in the course of this incident or perhaps over the course of the last 3 weeks. Jabalia, in case viewers are wondering, is the largest of the refugee camps in the Gaza Strip, home to around 120,000 people before this war began, packed into an area of about 1.5 square kilometers. It's not tents, it's buildings that have been there for decades and tightly packed streets. And we think, judging by the number of people who are there looking in the rubble to try and find bodies and survivors, there are still hundreds, maybe thousands of people still in the area, despite days and days of Israeli warnings for people to leave northern Gaza. So it is likely that any airstrike on Jabalia, and this does...
How is this okay? I can't believe this. I mean, what's it say? What do we say at this point? Just, there's nothing. It's not okay. There's not really much people can do in this situation. It's just you have to keep applying pressure to Western governments to shut the money faucet and shut the bomb faucet, or at least threaten to shut the missile faucet and the money faucet to Israel, unless they do a ceasefire and engage in hostage negotiations. Not okay. Don't feel hopeless. Just continue applying pressure. Call your congresspersons, demand a ceasefire. Hope that they will educate people on what's going on, with hopes that they will stop, with hopes that at least the Western government will apply some kind of pressure. Because that's the thing that the Israeli government fears the most. If they did not fear Western pressure and Western retaliation in the form of not sanctions necessarily, but even a threat that they will stop giving an open check to Israel, they wouldn't always engage in Western-focused propaganda so aggressively. I'm not hopeless. I'm not hopeless at all. I mean, I'm sad. I'm sad seeing the death toll. It's impossible not to feel sad when you know that 3,000 children have been ruthlessly slaughtered by the Israeli Air Forces, by the Israeli Defense Force, by the Israeli occupying force. 3,000 more children have been murdered by Israel in the last 3 weeks than the entirety of children that died, that were killed, died in war since 2019, which includes Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Think about that. Meanwhile, you see the fucking psychotic theatrics that are deeply anti-Semitic and trivializing of the Holocaust from Gilad Erdan and the UN Commission, the Israeli ambassadors to the UN, putting on a fucking Holocaust star, a Star of David, invoking the Holocaust to keep the bombing on the children continuing. Just absolutely unimaginable, dude. Like, oh, dude, it's my personal Holocaust. If you don't let me kill 3,000 more children, that's the message you want to send to the international community. What a fucking barbaric and completely and utterly psychotic thing to do. Please. It's ridiculous. No one trivializes the Holocaust more than Israeli officials. It's fucking nuts. Like the never again, the Star of David, like putting it on, adorning the Star of David at the UN that says never again in it, while you are currently engaging in an ethnic cleansing campaign against a population that is 50% children. Come on. I mean, there's nothing. I mean, it's like, it would be funny if it wasn't so fucking psychotic. Here is the official response, and this is the Times of Israel military correspondent, Emmanuel Fabian, Manny Fabian. I mean, he's a pretty good resource to understand what the fuck the IDF's doing. According to the IDF, Ibrahim Biari was one of the Hamas commanders responsible for directing members of the terror group's elite Nukba forces to invade Israel on October 7th. The IDF says the airstrike in Jabalia was part of a wide-scale strike on Hamas operatives and infrastructure belonging to the terror group's central Jabalia battalion. According to the IDF, the Central Jabalia Battalion took control of several civilian buildings in the area. The strike damaged Hamas's command and control in the area, as well as its ability to direct military activity against IDF soldiers operating throughout the Gaza Strip, the army says in a statement. So yeah, this is the second thing that Israel does. If they don't take responsibility and immediately blame Hamas or Islamic Jihad or whatever, then they will take responsibility and say, we told you there's Hamas there. It says numerous terrorists were killed with Biari, and underground terror infrastructure embedded beneath the buildings used by terrorists also collapsed after the strike. Yeah, this part I don't believe at all, but whatever. The IDF also says it reiterates its call to the residents of the area to move south for their safety. Now, if you want to understand the brutality, here is here's the IDF attack and its response from an IDF spokesperson talking directly to Wolf Blitzer.
Yes, I can. We were focused again on our target, a senior commander, Wolf, and we'll be updating you with more data as the hour moves ahead.
But even if that Hamas commander was there amidst all those Palestinian refugees who are in that Jabalia refugee camp, Israel still went ahead and dropped a bomb there, attempting to kill this Hamas commander, knowing that a lot of innocent civilians, men, women, and children, presumably would be killed. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's not what you're hearing, Wolf. We're focused on this commander.
motherfucker's Scottish, bro. What the fuck? Yo! At first, I thought he had an Israeli accent of sorts that I had never heard. Yo! What the fuck? Are my ears deceiving me? Are you fucking telling me he moved to Israel when he was 4 years old?
That's not what you're hearing, Wolf. We're focused on this commander, again, who you'll get more data who this man was. Killed many, many Israelis. We're doing everything we can. It's a very complicated battle space. There could be infrastructure there. There could be tunnels there. We're still looking into it, and we'll give you more data as the hour moves ahead.
Yo, I'm losing it. Oh my God, I'm fucking losing it, dude. Like, listen, Wolf, there was children there, but we had to kill them.
But you know that there are a lot of refugees, a lot of innocent civilians, men, women, and children in that refugee camp as well, right?
This is the tragedy of war, Wolf. I mean, as you know...
Oh, he's so sad. Look at how sad he is, man. You don't understand. Wolf, it's a tragedy. These children have to be fucking slaughtered. Okay? They have to be slaughtered.
We've been saying for days, move south. Civilians that are not involved with Hamas, please move south.
I'm just trying to get a little bit more information. You knew there were civilians there. You knew there were refugees, all sorts of refugees, but you decided to still drop a bomb on that refugee camp, attempting to kill the Hamas commander. By the way, was he killed?
I can't confirm yet. There'll be more updated. Yes, we know that he was killed. About the civilians there, we're doing everything we can to minimize. I'll say it again.
Does anyone believe this? Like, I mean, you have to have like, you have to have an Israeli boot lodged so far up your fucking mouth that it is like impacting your brainstem to be like, yeah, no, they are definitely trying. They're trying, but oh God, they're just so silly. They're silly billies. Like, oh man, they're trying so hard, except 3,000 children. It's just such a sad state of affairs. They try so fucking hard. I love the argument that people always fucking turn around and present to me, which is so utterly disgusting, morally abhorrent, and also stupid, where it's like, oh, they could just nuke Gaza. No, they can't. You want to know why they can't just fucking nuke Gaza? Because it's literally like, it's like nuking North Carolina from the border of South Carolina. You can't fucking just nuke a town next door, okay? The idea that if they wanted to do ethnic cleansing, they could do it so much better. No, killing 2 million citizens is very difficult, okay? It is a very difficult endeavor. It is not as easy as you think it is. It takes a long-ass fucking time. And not only that, but also Israel has to do it in a way where, like, the rest of the world doesn't go, dude, what the fuck are you doing? This is literally the Holocaust. So they have to do it in a way that makes it seem like they're doing it morally. Although everything that Israel is doing fits the legal definition of an apartheid state, and everything Israel is doing in Gaza right now especially fits the legal definition of a genocide. And don't listen to me, listen to a Holocaust historian who has said as much, okay? Hold on. Here is Israeli historian and Holocaust scholar claiming that Israel's treatment of Palestinians in Gaza is a textbook case of genocide. This was, of course, at a time when only, and I can't believe I'm saying this, 2,778 people had been killed, with around 10,000 being wounded. This is from Roz Segal. He wrote an article on the Jewish Currents, professor of Holocaust and Genocide Studies at Stockton University. Segal wrote that Israeli leaders and officials have made their intent clear, noting Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant's comments about fighting human animals An Israeli defense spokesperson, Daniel Hagari, saying the emphasis is on damage and not on accuracy. If you listen to the IDF telling you that there are, if you listen to the IDF and believe them when they are telling you, oh, there's Hamas here, that's why we had to blow them up, then why don't you fucking listen to them when they also said, we're shutting off their food, we're shutting off their water, they are human animals, we do not care about their safety and security, we are there to bomb indiscriminately. It seems like a lot of people want to just not hear that part of the conversation and only focus on the parts where Israel, in the aftermath of yet another bombing campaign that was objectively brutal and unimaginably cruel, says, oh, they deserved it. Israel's official account on X, formerly known as Twitter, said, unlike the barbaric enemy we're fighting, we do everything we can to keep innocent civilians safe. They don't. They do not. Segal said Israel is perpetrating 3 of the 5 acts that fall under the UN Convention's definition. The dropping of thousands and thousands of bombs in a couple days, including phosphorus bombs, as we heard, on one of the most densely populated areas around the world, together with these proclamations of intent. This indeed constitutes genocidal killing, which is the first act. Israel is also perpetuating act number 2 and 3. That is, causing serious bodily or mental harm and creating conditions designed to bring about the destruction of a group by cutting off water, food, and supply of energy, bombing hospitals, ordering the fast evacuation of hospitals. Segal added, noting that the World Health Organization has called the orders to evacuate hospitals a death sentence for the sick and injured. So we're seeing the combination of genocidal acts with special intent. This indeed is a textbook case of genocide, he said. In his op-ed, Segal also said that the leaders in the West had reinforced this racist rhetoric of Israeli leaders and officials by describing Hamas's attacks as evil. This dehumanizing language is clearly calculated to justify the wide-scale destruction of Palestinian lives. The assertion of evil in its absolutism elides distinctions between Hamas militants and Gazan civilians and includes the broader context of colonization and occupation, he wrote. Told Democracy Now! That the attack by Hamas was a horrendous war crime, but using the term evil to describe the militant group is to decontextualize and enhance the widespread fantasies of Israelis today that they are fighting Nazis. He referred to a recent television interview where former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett lashed out at an anchor asking about the Palestinian civilians suffering in Gaza by declaring, "We're fighting Nazis." There's a long history of this shameful use of the Holocaust memory, which Israeli politicians have used to justify, rationalize, deny, distort, disavow mass violence against Palestinians, Segal said. And it has allowed also a view to develop that sees Israel as somehow exceptional, providing it impunity. The truth, however, is that all perpetrators of genocide actually see their victims as dangerous, vicious, as inhuman. That's how the Nazis saw the Jews, and that's how today Israelis see Palestinians. They are behaving in a manner that is absolutely consistent in the same exact way that Nazis behaved during World War II, okay? In their treatment of Jewish people. This is not my assessment. This is Holocaust scholar Roz Siegel's assessment. Anyone that tries to declare that this is anti-Semitic is just an absolute fucking delusional moron. Anyway, anyone have a link to the article? It's a Newsweek article, but you can also find the interview on Democracy Now! Wow, calling anyone you disagree with a delusional moron, typical. No, I'm calling people that specifically deny the absolute truth that is in front of their eyes if they choose to see it. You know? If you consider what Israel is doing in Gaza anything but absolute truth of the internet, no, it's not the... Don't try to trivialize this, okay? If you consider what Israel is doing in Gaza anything but a deliberate ethnic cleansing campaign, okay, that fits the legal standards of genocide, you are blind. You have to be delusional. And they confirmed it. They confirmed the killing. They confirmed that, there were civilians that died, that were murdered in their attacks on the Jabalia refugee camp.
Appear to be an airstrike. That kind of crater is really only consistent with a large munition dropped from the air. Then it is almost inevitable that large numbers of civilians who have chosen to stay in the north will have been caught up in this. That figure of around 50, which is the number counted by journalists on the scene from Agence France Presse, that appears to be the minimum number of people caught up in this obviously huge.
Are Israel's war crimes technically U.S. sponsored? Yes. Without America's approval, without America's logistical support, without America's support, Israel would not be able to conduct this ethnic cleansing campaign.
Explosion.
They are using
you were
our
mentioning
bombs.
Some of the geography of the Gaza Strip, but over the last week and more, we've heard from the Israelis urging people, ordering people to leave the north, to go to the south of the Wadi Gaza. Just tell us a little more about where this camp is within that sort of geography, north-south, and this line that the Israelis have talked about.
Yeah, so Jabalia is north of Gaza City, so it's between Gaza City and the border fence with Israel. So it is not far.
So you're against sending money to Israel? Brother, are you fucking kidding me? Do you know how much I have championed sanctions on Israel for, like, if you think this is the first time I've said we should abso-fucking-lutely stop sending money to Israel, you are out of your fucking mind. Yes. And you know who else said that? Bernard motherfucking Sanders, okay? When he was running for president, he said, we have to stop giving money to Israel, okay? We have to stop giving money to Israel as long as it continues its ethnic cleansing campaign. I don't know where he stands now, but when he was running for president, he had the courage to openly say it. More politicians should be openly saying it. More politicians in the Western world should be saying, enough is enough. You have to stop. Unless we do a ceasefire immediately and an end to end to this occupation immediately, not a single dollar goes into Israel. Anthony Blinken wants to send aid. I just watched him talking about sending aid. Yeah, they're fucking genocidal monsters in the American State Department. Of course they want to send aid. They already have. Why do you think there was such pushback on the hospital but not the refugee camp? I mean, if the Israeli officials said we didn't actually bomb Jabalia and that it was also another Hamas rocket, there would still be plenty of back and forth in the media about how maybe it did just kind of do that to itself. It's also much harder to disprove. 6 tons of munitions and the crater that it leaves behind is impossible. U.S. Army sent a B-1B long-range strategic bomber to Incirlik base in Turkey. Hit-top refueling of the B-1B warplane was carried out for the first time in Turkey on Tuesday. Well, that's also one of the other reasons why I think it's fucking laughable when Erdogan says, oh my God, I'm going to show you, Israel, that you're wrong. Remember, those are the same bases that were utilized in the fucking coup d'etat that failed in Turkey. But guess what? Guess what? Turkey's relations with America could not be better, okay? In theory, Erdogan could fucking talk shit all day, every day. But in practice, there's no love lost. After all, America allowed Erdogan to take control over the northern Syrian corridor. What do you think happens there? Kurds live there. What do you think what do you think happens to them? A parallel can be drawn in the way that America utilizes Kurdish militias in the Middle East anytime they want to fight against any kind of combatant or engage in destabilizing actions, or literally use the Kurdish militias that they train and arm against other militias that they also are responsible for creating, like fucking ISIS, right? And then when they're done, when they've outlived their usefulness, they just fucking allow Turks to come in and do whatever the fuck they want. This, in a way, draws a parallel to the way that the Iranian administration views Hamas and any kind of Palestinian resistance against Israel. Kurds are seen not as a group that is ethnically displaced, that has 35 million living in diaspora with no fucking, no state. Okay? But instead, a group of militants that they can use a pawn that time and time again America has absolutely fucking left behind. Iran uses a emancipatory need that Palestinian people have that is expressed in different ways by arming and training more fundamentalist groups that are interested in violent retaliation, and using them against Israel as a destabilizing force, because they see Israel as a continuation of America in the region. But as you have seen in this last back and forth that turned into yet another ethnic cleansing campaign, Iran's interest in Palestinian emancipation is not necessarily one born out of a real interest in helping Palestinians at all. It's interesting to think that it's just like what is it, the Russian dolls? It's like that. It's a sequence of different regional actors utilizing militias against one another. The Matryoshka nesting dolls, exactly. Don't you think Turkey are colonizers in the same way Israel has colonized Palestine? I'm very critical of Turkey's actions, Turkey's actions against Kurds in general, both in its internal affairs and certainly in Syria and other parts of the region. But to make this comparison and say that like Kurdish people live under similar conditions that Palestinians live under in Israel is not correct. Absolutely incorrect. It is not a correct comparison to make. It's just not true. And I say this as someone who believes in a nation state for Kurds. As a matter of fact, although Kurdish living conditions, especially in Turkey, are far from great, it would be a dramatic improvement if Palestinians were treated in Israel in the same way that Kurds are treated in Turkey. That would not even, it would literally be like, it would be considered world peace, like global peace has been occurred. The global peace has been established. That's how bad the situation is for Palestinians. By the way, just in case anyone keeps asking, it's not just Ross Siegel that says genocide is happening. The Lemkin Institute for Genocide Prevention has just published their own assessment on the going genocide on their Twitter. Anyway. Yes, we're going to talk about the leaked memo and the right wing that corresponds to the right wing think tank closest to Netanyahu and their interest in moving Palestinians into Egypt and how they would achieve such ends in an effort to permanently occupy northern parts of Gaza, if not the entirety of Gaza, and engage in massive ethnic displacement. Am I okay? Didn't the Turks kind of genocide Kurds too? What a wild take. This is not a wild take at all. It's one that I believe most Kurds would agree with as well. Like if the situation, if the situation for Palestinians, which is so dire, situation for Palestinians is so dire. This is not to say that like Kurds are in a great situation in Turkey. I'm not saying that at all. Far from it, as a matter of fact. But it's similar to my comparisons to Jim Crow South and the horrifying nature and the horrifying violence that black people were subjected to in the Jim Crow South. I've told you this before. Historically, if you look at the Jim Crow South and pogroms, if you want to call it that occurred in the Jim Crow South, those conditions for black people are similar to the conditions that that Palestinians experience in the West Bank right now under an apartheid structure. The situation in Gaza is worse than that. The situation in Gaza is worse. I'm Kurdish, and I don't understand what we gain from making this comparison, to be quite honest. Can chatter stop using our statelessness to engage in debate lordism, please? Well, for many chatters, I think it's just a way to get like a Turkish guy on the back foot, they think, because they don't know what my opinion is on developing a Kurdish nation state. Developing a Kurdish nation state and also Kurdish emancipation. They don't know, and they think like, oh, he's Turkish, so he hates Kurds. Like he wants to fucking kill Kurds. It's it's pure whataboutism, I think. It's simply utilized as a distraction. I would assume that people utilize it because people use it because they just like have heard someone else say it. Like I don't know if anyone else has like made this comparison recently, but I suspect that that's where it comes from. Usually, when you see a lot of messages in the chat that aren't about the top of the hour ad break, which comes at the top of every hour, it's usually directed from like one content creator and their followers that like our communities commingle with. You know what I mean? Here's the 3-minute ad break now. Haven't you also said if Palestinians were treated how black people are treated in America, it would be infinitely better? Yes, I have said that. Sakura, thank you for the 20 gifted subs. And Salecat, thank you for the 5 gifted subs. I have said that, yes. Like, the is true. It would be an unimaginable improvement on the living conditions of Palestinians in under the apartheid regime. Because, I mean, the reality is that the apartheid South African conditions are most similar to the Palestinian conditions now. And apartheid South African conditions were, of course, far worse than what black people experienced in America, especially in the 90s in America. America is still a white supremacist nation. It still has legalized slavery through its criminal justice system, and it's continued its ongoing efforts to enslave black and brown populations through a more legal structure that I find abhorrent. But having said all that, it's not even a thing. Like, it's just ridiculous to assume that it's ridiculous to assume that like their conditions now would be akin to or worse than apartheid South Africa or apartheid Israel. I, as a white man, have no legal protection if I decide to take a black man's property. Israel backs the settlers who take Palestinian property. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, it's not even a comparison, guys. It's not. It is one of the worst cruelties that is ongoing, that is happening with our full-throated support. Not a comparison. Like, remember the black jogger in Atlanta and the lynch mob that came for him and killed him? Those guys went to jail. Okay? When that same thing happens every single fucking day in the West Bank, it's when people even dare to protest against a straight up murder, the police force comes in and kills everyone, like literally with live ammunition. Think about that. And no one is held accountable for it. It's not even a comparison. Not a single Israeli goes to jail for such a thing. Don't you think they're paying the price for what they did to the Ottoman Empire? You are a fucking psycho, dude. I hate this Turkish concept of like the Arabs betrayed the Ottoman Empire and thought that like the British would be better to them, so they deserve to be ethnically cleansed 100 years later is like an absolutely unimaginably and laughable nationalistic notion. You are psychotic. It is crazy. I hear it. I hear what people say. Klasik seküler Türkiye'de çok görülen bir durum, ilginç bir kafa. I don't understand how you can say such a thing. Like, how is it nationalistic if it's Arabs? Turkish nationalism also features the Ottoman Empire in all of its glory. Turkish nationalism has two different planks. You have Panturanists who believe in like a larger Turkic mythology, and some that look at the Ottoman Empire as well. All right. So we're going to read the Financial Times article on Hamas's capabilities in a second.
From the areas where Israeli forces have been pushing in on the ground. They're not there yet. They haven't reached those really densely populated areas yet, but they are gradually pushing forward on a number of areas in the north. At the same time, we've seen the movement of Israeli forces south of Gaza City, closer to Wadi Gaza, in what looks like an attempt to cut off Gaza City from the rest of the Gaza Strip. That would be entirely consistent with the messaging that we've been hearing from the Israelis really since this war began 3 weeks ago, which is to try and tell everybody to move south of that line. The Israelis feel that they have a lot that they need to achieve in the wider Gaza City area, that is where many Hamas fighters will be located. That is where a lot of the bunkers and tunnels that we've heard the Israelis talking about a great deal over the past few weeks, that's where all of that is located. And so I think it is likely that as the days go by, more and more focus will be on this very, very densely populated area. What we don't know is how many people, civilians, remain in that area. We do know that there are thousands of people sheltering at Shifa Hospital, where the Israelis allege that Hamas has bunkers underneath. We know of thousands of people sheltering at the Al-Quds Hospital in another part of Gaza City. And there are UN schools and medical facilities dotted about this entire area where people are still sheltering. So it is safe to assume that there are still many, many thousands of people who run the risk of being trapped in Gaza at the very moment when the Israelis turn their attention to it on the ground.
Only this time, yesterday or around this time, we heard Benjamin Netanyahu absolutely adamant there would be no ceasefire. It's interesting, just in the last couple of hours, the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has said humanitarian pauses must be considered in Gaza. He was talking to a senator.
I mean, at least once the death toll has reached 8,000 with 3,000 children, now even Blinken, who previously was saying no red lines, there's no line Israel can't cross, is going, humanitarian pauses, please. Maybe by this time next week, when the number is around 20,000, they'll finally say, okay, we should really do a ceasefire. And when it reaches 30,000, they'll go, okay, ceasefire now. Are they just going to try and annex Gaza City? I mean, annexation is a very, very, very difficult endeavor. I don't think that they can do that. I don't think they have the capabilities of doing that. So we'll see. The Israelis are trying to advance the coast, so people likely won't be able to actually get out now. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. Here, they're pushing. Wait, what the fuck? That's not the right link for some reason. But yeah, IDF Box confirms. Blitzer, you know there are a lot of refugees, innocent civilian men and women. IDF spokesperson, heck, this is our tragedy of war, Wolf. We've been saying this for days. Move south. So here is the ongoing activity on the ground. This is all the northern part of Gaza. The Palestinian Interior Ministry in Gaza said the occupation forces are trying to reach the Al-Rashid Street from Salah al-Din Street on the eastern side on the outskirts of Gaza City. So they have started coming in from the north, and they are moving as well all the way to the beachfront so they can shut off the entirety of northern Gaza. Why is annexation difficult? I don't know. Ask motherfucking Russia. Okay? Annexation is so fucking impossible to do unless the civilian population already is like, has been ethnically displaced a ton of years ago, like for hundreds of years. Okay? I'll give you an example. Okay? Russia cannot annex Ukraine, but Russia was able to annex Crimea with very little difficulty. There is a difference. Why? Because the ethnic Crimean Tatars had already been ethnically displaced for hundreds of years. So the majority of the Crimean population was already Russian. That's why there's a major difference between, for example, the annexation of Crimea versus the invasion of Ukraine. You cannot invade a country and assume that you can just maintain this country. America can't even fucking do it. The only way to be able to full-blown annex a nation and maintain its population is by basically doing some kind of genocide. Even then, and that is what they're doing, but even then, a permanent occupation of northern Gaza is very, very difficult. I know that that is the interest here, according to internal memos and also right-wing think tanks close to Benjamin Netanyahu who have talked about the annexation of northern Gaza and what to do with it. But there are still hundreds of thousands of people there. They will understandably fight back. They will be busy with Hezbollah soon? I don't think so. Like I said, I think that that either due to some private correspondence, private back and forth, and possible normalization occurring with Iran through private channels.
Death is a cup from which
Or I don't know. I don't know what the other reason could be. It doesn't seem that and also due to the dire economic situation in Lebanon, I do not believe that Hezbollah or Iran is all too excited to join and open up new fronts for Israel. There's also 2 fucking aircraft carriers in the region, Americans. 900 soldiers have been deployed, 2 aircraft carriers. There is just posturing with cryptic statements from Iranian officials and Hezbollah as well. But beyond that, it's mostly just Iranian-backed forces like the Houthis in Yemen and Hezbollah just, sending rockets into northern Israel, but it's just pot shots in comparison to what constitutes like an actual full-blown ground invasion.
Senate hearing, but even a pause looks really unlikely at the moment, doesn't it?
China said that they were sending their Navy ships. Things are going to get heated. I don't think so. I mean, China has 2 competing interests. One is their trade relationship with Israel, which is very important. But 2, China also, of course, will always try to undermine America's influence. Chinese Navy ships are in the region due to not even in that region, but like Chinese Navy has been conducting training operations. You just got hinkled, in my opinion, when you think that like China is going to go there and like fucking fight against America. Especially because Chinese operations, especially against the United States of America, have always been incredibly restricted, incredibly tempered.
I think it does, and actually a pause will not even affect Gaza City at all. The Israelis have made it clear that nothing that goes into Gaza, no aid that goes into Gaza, will go north of that Wadi Gaza line. That, for the Israelis, is absolutely essential. They're happy for aid to go in to the south, to the area where many, many hundreds of thousands of people have fled and are now sheltering, some of them in tents. But
Elon said, if you want any more indication that Gulf nation states don't care about Palestinians, Saudi Arabia assured the Biden administration that the kingdom is still interested in pursuing an agreement that would normalize relations with Israel after the Gaza war ends in the White House. Yeah, there you go. For all of you who thinks that like the Ummah or the Gulf leaders would ever reflect the interests of like the Muslim population around the fucking planet. Saudi Arabia has been America's greatest ally. Saudi Arabia literally did 9/11 and America was like, you're our fucking goat. You're our king. We love your oil. Okay? Saudi Arabia and Israel have, in all but name, already had good relations. Just because it's not like officially recognized does not change that reality. And this goes for all of the Gulf nation states. This also goes for Turkey. The interests of the populations are not reflected by the actions of their leaders. You have to remember this, okay? And this is especially so in like a fucking Muslim theocracy like Saudi Arabia. It's a kingdom. It's a theocratic monarchy. Of course they don't give a shit. There's no fucking democracy. The population, of course, is understandably on the side of the Palestinians, but they can do whatever the fuck they want. Same goes for Turkey as well. Erdogan can talk a big fucking game about like 1 minute. Oh my God, I'm so mad about Israel. I'm so angry. But ultimately, as one of the chatters correctly pointed to, they're still going to use American bases in Turkey, because Turkey is a NATO ally, to refuel their fucking bomber planes, or Turkey is going to continue its like actual relationship with Israel. China is supplying Israel with level 4 body armor. They also sold tanks to both sides of the Iran-Iraq war back in the day. By the way, even the people are not on the side of Palestine. That is not true. You're absolutely wrong about that. No. That is racist, vitriolic, anti-Palestinian, divisive rhetoric that you will only see in the Western media and in Israeli media. They say, oh, Palestinians, nobody wants them. Nobody wants the Palestinians. That is literally objectively untrue, because the Palestinian plight is simply an expression of the same kind of imperialist victims, like the victims of imperialism, that every fucking person in the Muslim world has experienced in some way, shape, or form. They literally see the people on the ground 1,000,000% see Palestinians as yet another group of individuals that have been fucked over by American forces, American imperialism, Western imperialism. It's ridiculous. And not only that, but I'll take it one step further. Same goes for fucking Latin American countries. Same goes for the entirety of the global south. Same goes for the periphery nations. Same goes for the actual people that have been victim to whether it be IMF and World Bank neo-colonial experiments and the economic violence they were subjected to, or direct coup d'etats, or direct boots on the ground military occupation. That much is completely false. I know, but many people there are not on their side. They have not come forward and said it. You're wrong. How can you look at even a place like England with 500,000 people taking to the fucking streets? England. Okay? 500,000 people taking to the fucking streets to demand a ceasefire, and you're like, oh, no, the people actually are not on the side of Palestinians. No, they are. Even in the Western world, they are. No, I do not agree with this. I think it's a very weird and very like racist rhetoric to say, and I hear it all the time from those who want to defend Israel, to shift the blame over to like other Muslim countries in the region, to be like, oh, they don't want those refugees. They don't want those refugees. They hate the Palestinians. They think Palestinians fucking suck. All they know is like being a refugee and taking billions of dollars from UNRWA. It's that same psychotic, like, privileged refugee status rhetoric that I hear so much from ultra-Zionists. The populations in Gulf nation states, of course, are on the side of the Palestinians. The leadership, however, is not. The leadership is on the side of the United States. These are client states. Gulf countries don't see mass demonstrations because their government are extremely authoritarian and oppressive and would absolutely arrest every single person who dares to think protest. What do you mean? They still happen, though. It still happens. It's been happening nonstop. Anyway. Christian evangelists in my country went out and marched in favor of Israel. Not that none of them are half-educated, not even the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, so it doesn't surprise me. We're always in support not only of our downfall, but of our oppressors. I mean, yeah, you're talking about fucking evangelical psychos. Also, I love saying that Gulf nations are incredibly authoritarian and crack down on protests, while fucking France is right there. You know what I mean? It's funny. It's funny to say this because, like, we don't ever think about how fucking inherently oppressive supposed Western liberal democracies are. And it's like, I mean, look at France, look at Germany. Pro-Palestinian demonstrations are shut down with identical fervor that you would expect from an authoritarian country, an authoritarian Gulf nation state. And yet what? I mean, it's not comparable. They don't mass kill. Wait, what? Do you think like they're just mass killing protesters in Gulf states? What the fuck what? So much of the problem that people face, so much of the blindness that people have to these kinds of things that are happening in the Middle East could be solved if they just simply took a deep breath and decided not to fill the puzzle piece that is missing in their brain with like Islamophobic racism. Okay? If they simply said, are you saying that the Syrian government reacts the same? Did I mention the Syrian government? But what the fuck? Even Saudi, yeah, in Saudi Arabia, they're opening up live ammunition. The only place where people are opening up with live ammunition, where the government is opening up with live ammunition, is motherfucking Israel, okay? In the West Bank. There's only one country in the equation that actually opens up live ammunition fire onto protests, and that country is Israel. But of course, we do not see it in that way. We do not see it in that way because we just only think about Israel being an expression of the West. So, like, of course.
But even there,
it's
the
different.
aid that is managing to get across the border from Egypt is just a tiny fraction of what is needed. We've heard American officials and Israeli officials talking in the last couple of days about increasing the number of trucks that go across the border.
To be honest, Iran does that too, and Russia does it as well. Dude, what the fuck? Okay. Oh my God, I'm going to lose my mind. First of all, you're talking about two very authoritarian countries, okay? And even then, the only times where what you're referencing has happened, it doesn't happen in Russia, first of all, and I'm no fan of fucking Russia, which is far from a Gulf state in general. But if you're comparing it to Iran, it has happened in Iran, certainly. It has. Not to the degree that you think it occurs in Iran, and certainly not to the degree that it occurs in the West Bank. But it has happened in Iran, yes. Live ammunition has been used on protests in Iran, but it's mostly mass demonstrations being shut down through non-lethal forms, which is still inherently oppressive and completely unacceptable. They do mass arrests. They do mass arrests in Russia as well.
Border up to around 100. That would be a start, but we haven't got to that point yet. We haven't seen that number of trucks going in on any single day. And even if they were to get in, it would be pretty challenging for the aid agencies to address the needs of those people who are huddled in the south, desperately in need of assistance. But as for the north and anyone north of Wadi Gaza, they are on their own.
Hello, I'm Lucy Gray. The Israeli military says it's striking Hamas targets in all parts of the Gaza.
Yeah. The Israeli military says it's striking Hamas targets, which we should believe. Also, the Gazan health ministry is backed by Hamas, so we shouldn't really believe that. But also, let's believe what Israel is saying.
As well as Hezbollah targets in Lebanon. An IDF spokesman said it was hunting commanders of the Palestinian militant group and attacking infrastructure. Meanwhile, the Palestinian Red Crescent says the area around the Al-Quds hospital in Gaza City has been under heavy bombardment by Israeli forces. Our Middle East correspondent Yolan Nell reports.
Shrouded in darkness, the Gaza Strip is pummeled from the air by Israeli airstrikes, with flares raining down to mark targets. And by day, the devastation and the huge human cost is clear. It was the subject of a briefing given to the UN Security Council last night. According to figures from the Palestinian Ministry of Health, some 40% of the more than 8,300 people killed in Gaza were children.
The true cost of this latest escalation will be measured in children's lives, those lost to the violence and those forever changed by it. More than 420 children are being killed or injured in Gaza every day. a number that should shake each of us to our core.
More than 3 weeks after Israel endured its bloodiest ever day of attacks, it's been expanding its military operation to obliterate Hamas, which controls Gaza. Israeli tanks are now slowly advancing, and the Israeli Prime Minister rejects any idea of a truce.
Calls for a ceasefire are calls for Israel to surrender to Hamas, to surrender to terror.
Yeah, dude, they're going to come in and take over Israel for sure. Yeah. 35,000 militants. They're going to come in and control a nation of 9 million people with a standing army of 300,000 reservists that have the best bombs. Like, literally, the best weapons. Oh, my God. That's what it means. Saying, please, fucking stop killing babies. Please, for the love of Christ and all things holy, stop killing one child every 10 minutes. That is akin to saying Hamas should take over Israel with 35,000 militants and execute everyone there. That's what it means. Absolutely psychotic, moronic concepts being dished out here.
Terrorism, to surrender to barbarism. That will not happen.
Overnight, a glimmer of hope for Israelis, celebrating after a soldier said to have been rescued by the army in Gaza was brought home. Some 238 hostages, Israelis and foreigners, snatched on the 7th of October, remain captive. Earlier, these 3 Israeli women had been shown in a video put out by Hamas.
When I saw the image of Danielle on TV, my heart almost stopped. My wife and I were on one hand shocked, but on the other hand we felt relief that we saw her alive and that we see her. Until today we didn't know anything about her.
Entire neighborhoods in Gaza are being rendered unrecognizable. This 5th war in 15 years is the most brutal yet. And beyond the fighting, conditions grow tougher by the day. Aid agencies saying that a small increase in the supplies now getting in isn't nearly enough. Yolande Nell, BBC News, Jerusalem.
Well, there are reports 100 aid trucks will be allowed into Gaza in the coming days, but the UNRWA spokesperson Juliette Tuma says it's a fraction of the help that's needed.
The trucks that have been coming into the Gaza Strip, by the way, not every day, are far from enough. Before the war, Gaza received 500 trucks, including of humanitarian aid. So what we're having right now is really a trickle, and does not correspond at all to the huge and increasing humanitarian needs on the ground in Gaza.
And in terms of the amount of people that you have in Gaza, it's many thousands, isn't it, people that have worked for you over the years. What are they telling you from on the situation on the ground about how they're coping?
Well, every day our sadness deepens with confirmation that we keep getting that another colleague is yet gone. Yesterday we lost Samir. He was with his family and he was killed with his 8 children and his wife. 64 colleagues of ours at UNRWA have now been killed in just over 3 weeks in this war in the Gaza Strip. 64.
Gosh, and are the people who remain there, are they able to carry on their work now? I mean, we've been hearing some agencies having to really just give up because the situation is so dire.
No, we have not given up. We have not. We have 13,000 people who have been working with us in the Gaza Strip. We are the largest UN agency in the Gaza Strip, one of the oldest that have been working in Gaza with the Palestinian communities, teachers, doctors, engineers, support staff, counselors, psychologists, you name it. I mean, it's a very big presence for us at UNRWA in the Gaza Strip, and we have been working with the Palestinian communities. Now, many of our staff have been impacted themselves due to this war. Many have become displaced. Many have lost loved ones. Many have lost their own homes. Many of them are just exhausted. They have been living in UN shelters for weeks on end now. Many, however, continue to be on the front lines, giving the very little assistance that we have, being with the communities that we serve and fulfilling their humanitarian mandates. When we say these are unsung heroes, we mean it. UNRWA staff in Gaza are our unsung heroes, and they are the glimmer of humanity as we sink into our darkest hours.
Juliette Tuma there talking to me. She's from the UN agency which looks after Palestinian refugees. Let's speak to Abdel Basir Hassan, our reporter from BBC Arabic in Cairo. And I was listening to a military spokesperson for Israel talking to the BBC in the last half hour, saying that there could be 100 trucks of aid entering from Egypt into Gaza by the end of this week. How feasible is that, in your opinion?
Well, sources at the Rafah crossing just told us minutes ago that another 60 trucks have already passed through the Egyptian gate, the Egyptian side of the crossing, into the zone which Israel decided to be the point where inspections are taking place, loading and unloading the trucks, which and the change would be there. These 60 are now, together with another like 35, are being still at this point, didn't move to Gaza from yesternight. Yesternight, 60 entered to that point. Only 26 of them later in the night passed to the enclave. Now, at the point, there are 94 trucks at the loading, unloading, and unloading and inspection point, which is almost like 60 miles away from Rafah crossing, according to Egyptian sources. Yes, there is a significant rise in the number. We have been talking over the last days about 14, 15, 16, 20 trucks to yesterday, and today we are talking about 60 and 60 today as well. This came, in fact, after a conversation between Egyptian president and U.S. President Biden, which he said more trucks will be allowed in. And we have heard reports from yesterday that the State Department spoke about the possibility of busing fuel to Gaza, but no date was set for this for the fuel trucks to bus on. So far, we are talking about food, medicine, and water mainly. And there is an expected trip today to the border by the Egyptian Prime Minister. Something new might happen there. We don't know exactly why he would be there. But there is also an important meeting here in Cairo between UNRWA chief Philip Lazini and the Egyptian Foreign Ministry. There could be like a talk about the needs of the trip, especially after the complaints that whatever the number of trucks busing on, it wouldn't amount to the bare needs of the besieged strip. So therefore, we might expect from today's meeting more numbers to be divulged on what should be coming in the next days.
It's interesting that they're discussing the possibility of taking fuel in, because, of course, Israel says that it won't allow.
I love when people say when he's like fucking bilingual. Like, shut the fuck up, chat. I do that too. I hate it when people fucking shit on me as well. All my haters love going, oh, it says It's like, yeah, dumbass. Yeah, I speak 2 fucking languages fluently. Suck my dick.
Allow fuel to go into Gaza because of the concern that it could end up in the hands of Hamas.
And this is very important, but still we are talking about reports from the U.S. side, no mention of this from the Israeli side, or even from the Egyptian side, or even from the international organizations working in the strip. Or
I get personally very triggered by that shit.
Either here on the Egyptian side, they are in bad need. There were calls that and warnings that unless they get fuel as soon as they can, the services and the utilities are using fuel might collapse, and the services are offering for the needy in Gaza Strip might come to a standoff. Therefore, still food is an essential need for the Gazans, and therefore, we hopefully, after the Egyptian, Israeli, and could be the U.S. contacts over the last hours, there could be like a breakthrough soon. So therefore, we are waiting for this significant change if it happened.
OK, thank you very much, Abdul Basir Hassan, our reporter there in Cairo. Let's talk more about the military operation that's underway and speak to Anna Foster, our correspondent in southern Israel. And Israel's military talking about how it's hitting all areas of the Gaza Strip now and saying that it's had a large amount of exchanges on the ground with Hamas.
Damn, this guy's good.